Hey, what's going on, guys? Fieldcraft Survival back on the channel with Mike Hernandez. This is going to be dubbed in Spanish for all you Spanish listeners. What's up,
Not
Mike?
by me. I don't know how to speak Spanish.
Man, you're a fake Spanish speaker, man. So I'm with Mikey, and we're talking about gun cleaning. Here's the problem. We can't really do anything with gun cleaning because if you take apart a gun on YouTube, it would be bad. There's actually new rules that came out recently about this kind of stuff. And even though we do safe gun handling classes, self-defense and gun cleaning, anything with guns is not good now on YouTube. That's why we have Patreon. You guys can see the Patreon link below. You can go there for an actual class on this because I give the class in detail. Mikey, what's your experience with cleaning guns?
I think I'm just an average user where I have a few in my gun room and basically, wiping them down, making sure they don't have a lot of carbon.
That's the usual answer. It's like asking somebody on the flat range, like, what's your justification for deadly force? They will give you the _USCCA answer, right? Mm-hmm. It's the legal jargon, because there's not typically a standard. Where did you learn? Let me ask you this: where did you learn how to clean a gun?
YouTube.
Oh, who taught you?
I saw _Sig_Sauer did a couple videos on it.
Yeah.
To be honest, and what I love about their video is they kind of outline, that this is kind of a highly debated topic. Make it your own. Just make sure that it's clean.
Weird.
Some of my military friends, which is cool that we're doing this video because I actually can't wait for you to show me this. Have said, they did it religiously, but it was more like discipline than anything.
Yeah.
And then I have had a couple guns that weren't really, that great when I first started getting into it, and learning maintenance was part of the way that you could make sure that I was run right.
Yeah. So as an 18 Bravo, a weapons sergeant, went to a whole bunch of training, like formal training on cleaning guns. In sniper school, they taught us how to clean a sniper rifle properly at the schoolhouse. But this is a highly controversial topic. As somebody who used to shower with his M249 saw after a field problem, because my platoon sergeant would be like, hey guys, just how are we going to clean these things? Get in the shower with them and then start off with soap and water. Like,
really?
What? And then at one point, we used to clean our saws with a metal brush like this, which this is typically going to be bronze. They call it a bronze brush. When you scrape the metal, which is scraping off the coating on the gun, and it's shiny, that's not a good thing. You're not supposed to do that. But I remember being an infantryman, and a clean gun was that. Like, that's not carbon, that's coating. Like, why would we do that? So again, there's a lot of different techniques on this, and it depends on where you come from. There is a school of thought on, look, there's two sides of this coin. One side is you need to clean it religiously. And that's the same guys who are detailing their cars religiously.
Yeah.
And there's others, which I fall in this category, who are, I'm not going to over clean this gun as long as it's a well-oiled machine and it's running, right? It's running well. Now, what I will say about, like, let's take this 300 Blackout, this BCM. This BCM is direct impingement and blows back gas from the gas block, from essentially the barrel of the gun, into the operating system, which in this system is direct impingement, knocks the key, which reciprocates the bolt carrier group into the tube. That's a long way of saying all the dirty, foul carbon is blown back into the gun itself. So you'll get a lot of carbon foul, especially in the bolt, which locks into the chamber, which is the back of the barrel, and that could be problematic, right? That could be an issue if you don't address it. So if you take this, can you hand me that rifle? If you take this rifle, this is a LaRue. This LaRue is one of my favorite rifles. I actually took off the accessories and everything for cleaning this today for Patreon. When you have a LaRue 7.62, right? This is a .308 gas gun, direct impingement, but this is a sniper rifle. This gun is a sub-minute gun, which means it's sub-minute of angle at 100 yards, which is less than an inch. This thing could shoot the diameter of a 308 round, like 308, like half an inch at 100 yards. If I clean this the same way I clean this, I potentially will screw something up. So here's some generalities, because this isn't the block. Patreon will be the block because I can't get into the details of this. But here's some generalities. One, I want to clean like I would a vehicle. I want to first hot wash it. I want to get rid of all the dirt and debris. That's dirt and debris on the gun, dirt and debris in the gun. Here's one thing I'll always recommend. Gun scrubber is brutal on guns. Like it will take, like I grew up in a gun scrubber world of lazy military guys where we just had bottles of this and we would just dump this. This is like the pressure washer for washing the car. It gets rid of the loose muck and mud after you go mudding and breaks it loose. That's good for that. But when it comes to breaking down, you need CLP. Yeah. You guys, you use this, right? Stable?
Yeah.
I like it because it comes in these massive bottles where I can just soak the gun in it. But what's your experience with using CLP? Well, let me ask you this, because I don't actually know how you clean guns at all.
Yeah.
How do you use CLP?
So I use CLP as, like you said, to hot wash or beginning. With them, I'll wet a towel or a rag or something, take out internals, wipe them down.
You'll wet it down with CLP.
Yeah.
Wet it, kind of soak the gun, allow it to break down, and then what will you do?
Then I reassemble and make sure there isn't a lot of runoff. I kind of approach it like a car, right? Like preventative maintenance. You need to have just a little bit of oil in between metal parts just to preserve them, but also like the CLP stands for clean, lubricate, protect, right? I want that process of preserving. So that's really it. I mean, I'll go in, visually inspect. There's a couple things that I think we'll show on the Patreon that you can do that'll show you right off the bat if you need more or less. But that's really it. For me, it's a little bit more simple, I guess.
Well, the thing is, like in the military, you run guns and sustain, whether it's combat or training, in the worst conditions. Civilians, like as a civilian, I'm a civilian. I'm not trying to delineate the difference. As a civilian, like my Glock or my SIG or my 300 Blackout isn't run in the mud. I'm not on patrol in Fort Benning, North Carolina. So here's some of the things that I recommend in steps. One, have one of these. This is a barber brush. A barber brush is very good. So is compressed air. Compressed air is not going to hurt a gun. Why? I need to get the initial dirt and grime off the gun, right? Especially if it's sand, that will tear a gun up. I mean, sand is like, sand is like having salt on a car. It will just destroy your vehicle. Get this off. The gun's completely dry. Once this is done, that's kind of like the overview. Then I want to soak the gun in CLP, because the CLP and the clean, lubricate, and protect, the clean component is I'm soaking it to break down carbon. A lot of that carbon foul, which is the gunpowder and the residue, needs to be soaked to break it up. Like if you've ever looked into a chamber of a rifle, for example, this 308 LaRue OBR, that's the model of the rifle. When you look in that chamber, if it's fouled, you're not going to be able just to use a toothbrush or a Q-tip to get that out. So brush it, then soak it, and then brush it. These are one of my favorite tools because they're not overly aggressive. A medium toothbrush will do the same. So if you don't have one of these like AR-15 kind of cleaning kits, I would use a medium toothbrush and have soft as well. Because there are some components, like I'm not going to take this over the slide of my SIG 365 with an optic on it and just start scrubbing. I'm going to use a soft brush. I'm also not soaking down external components. I'm doing it lightly. Again, not getting into the details of it. A lot of people can overbrush their guns. Some people use these brass brushes to clean surfaces. Anything that has a black coating on it and you're using that is a no-no. You don't want to abuse the gun like that. Once I do a general cleaning, I'm using a lot of Q-tips. I'm also using brushes that are light, and I'm trying to break it down. If need be, I will use another round of this to clean it out. If we get into the lubrication aspect of it, clean, lubricate, Again, there's two sides to this. Some people advocate for maintaining dry guns. Maintaining dry guns is beneficial in a dry environment, but there's some people who put their guns in safes in non-climate controlled garages. Well, if you don't have the right humidor properties inside that gun safe, then you are leaving that gun to set up for disaster. So a rule of thumb that I do is I take a terry towel or a cotton swab and I will soak the cloth, but I will leave a light coating of lubricant on the gun, all over the gun. Not to where it looks wet, but at least I leave a coating over the gun.
Yeah.
That is going to protect it from rust. Most of the time when you see rust, it's because there's steel there that's exposed or the coating is broken down. With the proper coating, like all these guns, you'll never see that. So leave a light lubricant over the top of it, which protects it. That's the protective mechanism. Like if you're leaving a gun and you don't really shoot a gun, like the OBR I break out a couple times a year, this thing will be soaked in it. I just used it recently, which is why it's dirty and why it's a perfect opportunity on Patreon to clean it for you. But I want to make sure that I leave that in the gun safe or the gun room with protection. Lastly, let me ask you this. How do you clean barrels?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like to use what's the terminology for them? The little patches, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, so there's jags, they call them brass jags, that you would attach a patch through it to run through
the barrel.
So
Yeah.
what's your process?
Soak the patch, install it on top of the rod, and then move in and out only a couple times because I'm worried I don't want to damage rifling or the natural fouling that's supposed to be in there, right?
Yeah, that's not bad. And then do you ever use a brush?
No, I'm actually scared to do that.
Yeah. It just depends, right?
Okay.
So here's what I learned. One, if you have, and again, this is controversial in the community, even amongst the world's best gun snipers, like the guys who do it for a living. If you're a PRS guy or a guy who shoots long range for PRS or for a living, and you have better feedback on this, leave the comments below. Let us know what you think.
You know what I have used?
What?
You know those long snakes that have just a little bit of a brush
Yeah.
on them? I've used like a
Boar
snake.
snakes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's controversy over this on rifles, which I'll get in detail on the Patreon side of it because I have to actually break it down for you and show you. The lands and grooves inside of the rifling of a rifle have just that. They have grooves that are cut, right? These grooves that are cut in the rifling are deposit points for copper, right? Those copper deposits, some people will advocate that it's good because it's developing memory. Now, this is a little bit of down the rabbit hole, but what I mean is there are people who use shooter's choice, for example, to strip all the copper out of their barrel. And when they do that, they're redefining their memory or cleansing their memory. Because as a sniper rifle is broken in, depending on the break-in process, as that memory develops or evolves, you will start to see things happening. Like you will see the round group start to get tighter on the target. Now, from a carbine perspective, never even worried about it.
Yeah, same.
Because you're not worried about taking this out before it's transonic at 800 yards and having an 8-inch group, which means sub-minute group at 800 yards. If you're a rifle guy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? So here's a good rule of thumb. What he just said is exactly right. I want to take a patch with minimal chance of this jag, which this is a 308 jag, of potentially rubbing in the lands and grooves. And what I've always done, this might have changed because look, this stuff is decades old. If you're thinking I'm the expert on this, don't think that. This is coming from my experience, what I learned in sniper school like a long, long time ago. But I was taught you put the patch on the jag and you run it, but you only run it one direction, which is the direction of travel of the bullet from breech to the end of the muzzle, right? So I'm pulling it out, I'm resetting it. I'll remove the jag, I'll put in the bore snake, I'll attach it at the port and then pull it through again. When I do that, I'm running CLP from, how do you pronounce it?
Stable.
From stable. I'm running that through there to break up the carbon. Because in a direct impingement gun, you're getting carbon foul as well as deposits of potential brass and copper, depending on what you're using. You're getting copper inside of the lands and grooves. And as you pull that through, you let it soak a little bit. And then you want to pull one of these little guys or the patches to clean it. But some people advocate, especially in a carbine, to run the brush in between that. I would be one of those guys, especially with a carbine. You're putting lots of rounds to your carbine. You need to run this this bronze brush through breech to muzzle to break that up, and then repatch it with CLP to clean it up. The conversation about shooter's choice and all these different solvents for this, where you pull the patch and it's green because of the copper deposits, different conversation completely. But I would recommend that. Again, pull the patch, soak the carbon, break up the carbon, pull, if you're into the brass patch, to break that up, strip it through, and then run the patch until the patch doesn't have any carbon on it, and then finish off by running a light coating of this at the end. I think that's the protocol across the board.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, guys, again, I'm not the subject matter expert of this, leave the feedback below, because there are a lot of guys, even YouTube channels, who specialize in cleaning. Like Sig Sauer has an entire Rolodex of how to clean these guns. That's all I got, man, because outside of that, I want to break these down and do the class, but we'll do that on Patreon next.
Very cool.
You got any questions?
No, I mean, and to reiterate, that the questions you were asking were differentiated between a carbine or a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, my carbines, I'm more rough with them, I guess. It's something I don't need precision, but appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the next iteration of this will be showing you the bathtub version of this, where we just put soap inside of the tub and then you soak it. You want to take a bath with it like 20 minutes, and then once it breaks it up, then you just take it to the shower. That's a good way. You can even cold plunge your rifle now. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Resilience. It's how you build resilience in your rifle.
You just put them in the dishwasher.
Just put it in the you can break it apart, put it in the dishwasher. Oh, that should be the thumbnail. The rifle broken down in the dishwasher, and Fieldcraft Survival teaches cleaning. You guys would come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Patreon down below. Appreciate these guys. Stable Sport picked them up. I get guides like this, like gunsmithing guides. Some of these manuals that are expanded. Patrick Sweeney wrote a whole bunch of these. These are cool books to pick up. Hit up your local armor course and hit up experts that understand this thing to a T. Just don't overclean your gun. All my cars, all my guns are working tools. I don't need a safe clean. I need to run it like it's hot. All right, guys. Does that even make sense? What I just said just then?
To me, it does.
Okay, that's all that matters. How do you say that in Spanish?
Oh, I don't know.
Subtitle done. All right, man. Till next time. Peace out.
Thank you.